The first thing I remembered about my death was the silence. Not the peaceful, dreamless kind, but a hollow, echoing void where my own scream should have been. The second thing was the bitter taste of betrayal, a poison that had seeped so deep into my soul it followed me back into the world of the living. I opened my eyes and saw a stranger in the mirror. She wore Vera Wang, a custom-made gown of Italian silk that clung to her slender frame like moonlight on water. Diamond earrings glittered, casting stark, cold light on a face that was exquisitely beautiful and utterly bloodless. That face was mine. Alara Vance. 27 years old, heiress to the Vance Empire, and in less than an hour, scheduled to marry New York's most coveted bachelor, Julian Sterling. I lifted a hand, my fingertips tracing the frigid surface of the glass, trying to reconcile the trembling soul within with the poised doll staring back. It was then that a sharp, agonizing pain ripped through the depths of my mind, and a torrent of fractured memories flooded me. The cold stone floor where I was forced to kneel, copying scripture until my knuckles bled. The biting winter wind on Fifth Avenue as I prostrated myself every 3 steps, a public penance for a sin that wasn't mine. The sterile white lights of a hospital room, the doctor's clinical pity as he announced my miscarriage. And finally, the endless, suffocating darkness of a sanatorium, followed by the sweet, lethal overdose of sleeping pills. I was back. Reborn. Returned to what I had once believed was the happiest moment of my life, my wedding day. Julian's voice, cold and sharp, sliced through my ear like a shard of ice, plunging straight into the rawest parts of my memory. I turned. His handsome face was a mask of impatience, the gray eyes I had once adored now clouded with a familiar, chilling anxiety. "It's Serafina," he said, his jaw tight. "She's on the hotel rooftop. She's threatening to jump. I have to go." Serafina Davenport. Julian's childhood sweetheart. The ghost who had haunted every corner of our relationship. In my last life, she had pulled the exact same stunt on this very day. I had screamed, cried, accused her, and begged Julian not to leave. He had chosen to stay, to go through with the wedding. The price of his choice was Serafina's life. She had leaped from that rooftop, a broken angel in a white dress. From that moment on, my life had descended into a living hell. Julian, consumed by a guilt so profound it twisted him into a monster, blamed me for her death. He became a self-proclaimed saint, a penitent soul who found his salvation in my suffering. I became his tool for atonement. He forced me into bizarre, cruel rituals of repentance, held my family's business hostage to keep me chained to his side, and tormented me day after day until my spirit shattered and I welcomed death. But now fate had dealt me a new hand. I suppressed the violent hatred churning in my gut and offered him a gentle, poised smile. "You should go to her, Julian." He was visibly stunned. In my previous life, any mention of Serafina sent me into a fury. I saw her as the saboteur of our love. Now, I was the one telling him to go. "You want me to leave you here? On our wedding day?" He frowned, a flicker of confusion in his eyes. "Do you have any idea what the Times will write?" I sneered inwardly. "Gossip can't kill me, Julian. But you can." "I don't care what anyone thinks," I said softly, my eyes glistening with manufactured tears. "Our wedding can be postponed, but Serafina only has one life. If something happens to her, you'll regret it forever, and I would carry that guilt for a lifetime." My words earned me approving glances from the guests in the dressing room. Even my parents, who had always viewed my passionate outbursts with a critical eye, nodded slightly in recognition. Julian pulled me into a tight, almost suffocating hug, his lips pressing a cold kiss to my forehead. "Alara, you're always so kind. I'll talk her down and be right back to finish our wedding." I nodded sweetly, gently pushing him away. "Go. Saving a life is more important." As I watched him rush off, I clenched the hem of my gown, my hands trembling not with fear, but with a thrilling, vindictive excitement. "Julian, in our last life, you hated me because of Serafina. In this one, I'll deliver you to her myself." To sell the act, I stood alone on the wedding stage in my heavy dress for a full hour. The guests kept glancing toward the rooftop, their sympathetic looks a balm to my performance. Finally, Julian returned, and Serafina was by his side, dressed in a flowing white gown of her own. I'd almost forgotten. In my past life, she'd worn a wedding-like dress when she jumped. Serafina clung to Julian's arm, her eyes locking onto mine with open provocation. A chaotic murmur swept through the grand ballroom. Alara. Julian's face was a study in discomfort. Serafina. She says she's loved me for years. Her only wish is to have a wedding with me. If I grant her this one wish, she promises she'll never bother us again. So I finished for him, my voice calm and clear, just loud enough for everyone to hear. We're giving today's wedding to her? Julian nodded, his gaze fixed on the floor. I'm so sorry, Alara. I owe you. I'll make it up to you, I promise. The murmurs grew louder. Some pitied me, others mocked me for my false magnanimity, whispering that I was reaping what I'd sown. I held back my tears, forcing myself to maintain an air of dignified humiliation. It's all right, I said steadily. The moment I decided to save Miss Davenport, I put her feelings first. Serafina immediately jumped in. Julian saved me. If he hadn't agreed to marry me, I would have jumped anyway. What does it have to do with you? That single sentence turned even the neutral guests against me. As they stared at me with accusing eyes, Serafina's expression shifted, a smug smile playing on her lips. The fact that he did this proves I still matter to him. Exposed, Julian flushed with a mixture of shame and anger. Serafina, if it weren't for the friendship between our families, I wouldn't have given a damn about you. Because of you, Alara has suffered this humiliation, and you don't even appreciate it. Go back to the rooftop if that's what you want. Serafina's eyes reddened. After a moment's hesitation, she lowered her head reluctantly. I'm sorry, Julian. Since Alara is willing to give up the wedding, let's not keep the guests waiting. Let's just start. Julian looked at me, his face a mask of guilt. I gave him a faint, hollow smile, then turned and walked to the dressing room to change. Not long after, the wedding march began. I could hear Serafina's soft, affected voice reciting vows alongside Julian's. Just as I finished changing into a simple cocktail dress, the hotel manager burst in, panic written all over his face. Miss Vance, there's a fight in the main hall. I hurried back, only to be met with a scene that froze the blood in my veins. Julian was holding my younger brother, Liam, down on the floor, punching him over and over. Serafina stood to the side, her white dress stained with juice, screaming hysterically, "Kill the little bastard. Kill him." Julian's assistant was trying to pull him back, but I ran forward and grabbed his arm. Liam saw me, his mouth bleeding, and still tried to reassure me. I'm okay, Alara. In my past life, Liam was my only true family. He was also the leverage Julian used to threaten me. Eventually, to avoid being a burden, Liam had taken his own life. Now, seeing him alive, battered but breathing right in front of me, tears burst from my eyes. Julian flung me aside. Stay out of this. I hit the ground hard, and a sharp, searing pain shot through my lower abdomen. That's when I remembered. At this point in my past life, I was already pregnant. Alara. Liam broke free and rushed to my side. Only then did Julian stop, his fury giving way to alarm as he tried to come over and help me up. I shoved him away forcefully. Call an ambulance. I clutched my stomach, a cold sweat pouring from my forehead. Liam quickly pulled out his phone. But at that exact moment, Serafina let out a theatrical gasp and fainted. Without a second's hesitation, Julian scooped her into his arms and ran off toward the hospital. Watching his retreating back felt like knives twisting in my heart. Even in our sweetest moments, his first choice was always Serafina. How could I have been so blind? I'll go with you to the hospital, Liam said, supporting me as we stumbled toward the hotel entrance. Just as we reached the door, the ambulance arrived. Serafina's mother shoved me aside and shouted to the paramedics, "Save my daughter first." Julian climbed into the ambulance with Serafina in his arms. He didn't even glance at me. Alara, you just fell. Serafina fainted. It's more dangerous. Give her the ambulance. I'll have the driver take you. I shook my head, the pain in my belly twisting like a knife. No, I need to go to the hospital. Now. Serafina's mother slapped me across the face. You think you're worthy of competing with my daughter? Liam tried to fight back, but was immediately restrained by hotel security. Julian just frowned and said coldly, Mrs. Davenport is just anxious. Alara, stop making a scene. This is a matter of life and death. With that, he got in the ambulance and slammed the door shut. You bastard, Julian. I screamed at the top of my lungs. Suddenly, someone nearby cried out in alarm. She's bleeding. I looked down and saw bright red blood running down my legs, soaking into the pristine carpet at the hotel entrance. In this life, I vowed, the pain sharpening my resolve, I won't let anyone hurt me or the people I love ever again. Julian, our game is only just beginning. The piercing wail of the ambulance siren faded into the cacophony of New York City traffic, leaving me behind. I lay on the cold marble floor of the hotel entrance, the blood between my legs already soaking through my dress, a stark crimson stain against the pale fabric. Guests murmured in fear and panic, someone shouting for another ambulance. Hang in there, sis. Liam knelt beside me, shrugging off his tuxedo jacket and covering me with it, his voice shaking. The ambulance is almost here. The sharp pain in my abdomen nearly made me pass out, but my mind remained painfully, brutally clear. This fall hadn't just taken away my baby. It had shattered the very last illusion I ever had about Julian Sterling. Liam, I gasped, clutching my brother's hand, my knuckles white. Remember everything that happened today. Remember what he did to us. Don't talk, Alara. Save your strength, Liam said, his eyes bloodshot, his voice choked with emotion. That bastard isn't worth it. And in the distance, at last, came the wail of another approaching siren. As I was lifted onto the stretcher, I caught a glimpse of the hotel's large screen at the entrance. It was broadcasting a live stream from inside the ballroom. Serafina was wearing the wedding gown that was originally mine, clinging to Julian's arm with a triumphant, victorious smile on her face. What a cruel, ironic scene. In my previous life, Serafina jumped to her death, and Julian spent the rest of his life tormenting me, trying to atone. In this life, I willingly gave them my blessing, yet I still couldn't escape fate's bitter joke. The moment the ambulance doors closed, I lost consciousness completely. When I woke again, I was staring up at the pale, sterile ceiling of a hospital room. The room was quiet, save for the rhythmic beeping of medical machines. I tried to move, and a pain shot through my lower abdomen as if it were being torn apart. You're awake. Liam jumped up from a chair in the corner and rushed to my bedside. How are you feeling? Should I call the doctor? I shook my head. My throat was so dry it felt like it was on fire. Water. Liam immediately poured a glass of warm water, carefully lifted my head, and helped me drink. Is the baby gone? I asked softly, even though I already knew the answer deep down in the hollow space where my child used to be. Damn it. Liam's face darkened. Yeah. The doctor said the miscarriage was caused by external trauma. His fists clenched tightly. That bastard. He saw you bleeding and he still. What time is it? I interrupted him, the cold, hard shell of my resolve already forming. 3 p.m. You've been unconscious for almost 12 hours. Liam glanced at his watch. Mom and Dad rushed back from their overseas trip. They should be here any minute now. A warmth tightened in my chest. In my previous life, my parents had been abroad inspecting a business project. When they heard I'd had a miscarriage, they immediately flew home, only to die in a car crash on their way from the airport. After that, Julian took full control of my life under the guise of taking care of me. This time, I would protect them no matter what. Did Julian come? I asked calmly. Liam's face turned stormy. He did. Brought that bitch with him. I kicked them out. That bastard had the nerve to say he knew you didn't fall on purpose, but Serafina was traumatized and needed him to stay with her. I nearly punched him. I gently grabbed Liam's hand. Don't be impulsive. Hitting him won't solve anything. It'll just give him something to use against us. Liam stared at me surprised. You've changed, Alara. Before, you would have been angrier than me. I have changed, I said softly. When a person dies once, they don't come back the same. I squeezed his hand. Do me a favor, I continued. Find a reliable private investigator. I want every detail about Julian and Serafina's interactions, every call, every meeting. The more thorough, the better. Liam's eyes lit up. So you're finally going to fight back? I'm on it. He walked to the door, but then turned back. Oh, right. There's a doctor named Dr. Eris Thorne. He says he's your attending physician and has something important to discuss with you. The name Eris Thorne sounded vaguely familiar. I nodded. Let him in. Not long after Liam left, there was a gentle knock at the door. A tall man walked in, dressed in a white coat over a crisp shirt and tailored slacks. Behind his gold-rimmed glasses, his eyes were sharp yet kind. Miss Vance, I'm Dr. Eris Thorne, your attending physician. His voice was low and pleasant. Are you feeling any better? Much better, thank you. I slowly sat up in bed. I heard you had something to discuss. Dr. Thorne walked over and took a report from a file in his hand. These are your test results. Aside from the miscarriage, your uterus has suffered significant damage. Your chances of conceiving in the future are very low. I took the report, my fingers trembling slightly. In my past life, Julian had used this very reason to torment me, claiming I had caused Serafina's death and that God was punishing me by taking away my ability to have children. I understand, I said quietly, my voice betraying no emotion. I took a deep breath. Is there anything else? Dr. Eris Thorne hesitated for a moment, then lowered his voice. Yes. Something unusual. In your blood test, we found traces of a specific compound. It's a drug. Long-term intake can lead to infertility. I jerked my head up. What do you mean? He looked me straight in the eye. What I mean is, Alara, someone may have been secretly drugging you over a long period of time. This medication acts slowly, but it gradually damages the female reproductive system. My mind went blank. In my previous life, I'd always thought I was just naturally unable to conceive, but now I realized it had been intentional all along. Can you tell when it started? My voice trembled. Judging from the concentration in your system, Dr. Thorne replied, at least 6 months ago. This kind of drug is usually administered by mixing it into food or drink. 6 months ago. That was right around the time Julian proposed to me. A cold, venomous chill crawled up my spine. Dr. Thorne, can you keep this report confidential? I gripped the bedsheet so tightly my knuckles turned white. He pushed up his glasses. As a doctor, I'm obligated to protect my patient's privacy. He paused. However, if you need legal assistance, I know a few trustworthy attorneys I can refer you to. I studied this unfamiliar doctor, trying to understand his kindness. Why are you helping me? He gave a faint, sad smile. 3 years ago, Sterling Corporation forcibly shut down a hospital to build a luxury condo. That hospital was my father's life's work. A cold light flashed in his eyes. And no one deserves to be treated like this, especially not a pregnant woman. So that's what it was. The enemy of my enemy was my friend. Thank you, I said sincerely. I'll remember this kindness. Dr. Thorne nodded and turned to leave. But at the door, he paused. Oh, your brother mentioned you were looking for a private investigator. One of my college classmates runs a detective agency now. Very reliable. He pulled a business card from his pocket and set it on the bedside table. Reach out if you need him. After he left, I picked up the card. Raven Investigations. Marcus Rook. The name sounded familiar. Then I remembered. In my last life, there was a major news report in the financial section of the Wall Street Journal. It was this very Marcus Rook who exposed a massive financial fraud scandal involving Sterling Corporation. So fate had delivered an ally to me. Just like that. I was still lost in thought when the hospital room door opened again. This time it was my parents. Their faces were filled with a mixture of worry and fury. Alara. My mother cried as she rushed to my side and embraced me, her tears soaking my shoulder. How could this happen? That Julian. How dare he do this to you? My father stood at the side of the bed, his expression ashen. I've already contacted a lawyer. The Sterling family will pay for this. Seeing them standing there, safe and unharmed, made my nose sting. I nearly burst into tears. In my last life, they died in a plane crash trying to rush home to see me. I didn't even get to say goodbye. I'm okay, Mom. Dad, I held back my tears. It's enough that you came back safe. How can you be okay? My mother said, stroking my cheek tenderly. You lost the baby, and that bastard is marrying another woman, my father added grimly. The Sterlings sent someone this morning. They offered compensation, hoping we'd keep this quiet. I let out a cold laugh. Of course they want to keep it quiet. Sterling Corporation is preparing for their IPO. A scandal like this would cost them millions. My parents exchanged surprised glances, clearly not expecting me to speak with such calm, cold analysis. Elara, what do you plan to do? My mother asked carefully. I took a deep breath. First, I want a divorce from Julian Sterling. Then, my eyes flashed with an icy fire. And then, I'm going to make him and Serafina Davenport pay for everything they've done. They exchanged another look. Then, my father nodded, a look of grim determination on his face. Whatever you decide, we'll support you. Thanks, Dad. I gripped his hand. But I'll need your help. I told them what Dr. Thorne had discovered about the drug in my system. My father exploded on the spot, nearly smashing the hospital's television. That bastard drugged my daughter, he roared. I'm going to confront the Sterlings right now. Dad, calm down. I pulled him back. If you go now, it'll only alert them. We need evidence. We need a plan. My mother chimed in gently, her voice soothing but firm. Alara's right. We can't act on emotion. My father forced himself to swallow his rage. Then what should we do? First, I need a safe place to stay. I don't want to go back to the Sterling house after I'm discharged. Second, I'll need some funds to start putting my plan into motion. Without hesitation, my father nodded. We have an apartment on the Upper West Side. It's private and secure, my father said. Money's not a problem. How much do you need? $5 million, I said calmly. My parents looked at me, visibly surprised. I'm starting a business, I explained. The reason Julian Sterling dared to treat me this way is because he thinks the Vance family isn't as powerful as the Sterlings. I want him to understand that the daughter of the Vance family is not someone to be underestimated. A glint of pride flickered in my father's eyes. That's more like it. You're truly my daughter. As we spoke, the hospital room door was suddenly flung open. Julian appeared in the doorway, wearing a neatly tailored suit and holding a bouquet of white roses. When he saw my parents, he froze for a moment. Mr. and Mrs. Vance, he forced a smile. You're back. My father marched forward and grabbed him by the collar. You bastard. You still dare to show your face here. Julian stumbled back, flustered. Mr. Vance, this is a misunderstanding. I can explain. Explain what? My father roared. Explain how you abandoned my daughter at your wedding to marry another woman? Explain how you caused her to lose her baby? Or maybe you can explain how you've been secretly drugging her to make her infertile. Julian's face drained of all color. De-drugging? I don't know what you're talking about. I stood to the side, watching his performance coldly. In my past life, I'd been fooled by that same look of wide-eyed innocence for far too long. Get out, my mother said, standing up and pointing toward the door. If you come near my daughter again, we'll call the police. Julian awkwardly straightened the wrinkles in his suit left by my father's grip, placed the bouquet on the cabinet near the door, and said, Elara, I know you're angry, but I really don't know anything about drugging you. I'll come visit another time. He left in a hurry. And my father was still fuming. That piece of trash. I'll make sure he pays. I shook my head. No, Dad. Anger won't solve anything with someone like him. I picked up the business card Dr. Thorne had left. We need to be smarter. That evening, Liam returned to the hospital with Marcus Rook, the private investigator. Rook was a sharp-looking man in his 40s, his gaze as penetrating as a blade. "Miss Vance," he said as he shook my hand, his grip firm and professional. "Your brother gave me a basic overview of the situation. We'll begin the investigation immediately." I nodded. "Focus on two areas. First, the real relationship between Julian Sterling and Serafina Davenport. Second, the financial status of Sterling Corporation." Rook raised an eyebrow. "Financials? I thought you just wanted to investigate their personal drama." "The relationship is only the surface," I said with a cold smile. "Julian wouldn't have gone this far for Serafina without a business motive. I want to know his real reason." A look of admiration crossed Rook's face. "Smart." In fact, he lowered his voice. "My agency has been secretly investigating a large-scale corporate fraud case involving Sterling Corporation. The only problem is we don't have an insider." Once again, fate had placed a crucial ally in my path. "I can help," I said without hesitation. "I worked in Sterling's marketing department for 6 months. I know how they operate." Rook's eyes lit up. "That's excellent. Then we'll share intel. You provide internal information, and I'll dig into Julian and Serafina's backgrounds." We came to an agreement. Before Rook left, I turned to Liam. "Go to my old apartment and get the flash drive in the drawer of my desk. It has documents I gathered from my time at the company." Liam nodded and left. The room finally fell quiet. I leaned against the pillow, gazing out at the New York skyline, and began sorting through the information in my head. In my past life, after Serafina died, Julian's entire personality changed. He immersed himself in strange Buddhist teachings, but he tortured me with the cruelest methods imaginable. Looking back, it wasn't faith. It was just an escape from his own guilt. But in this life, Serafina was still alive. What would Julian become this time? I was lost in thought when my phone buzzed suddenly. It was a text from an unknown number. "Miss Vance, this is Dr. Thorne. I just received further analysis from the lab. The compound found in your system closely matches an experimental contraceptive being developed by Sterling Pharmaceuticals. The drug hasn't been released to the market yet. It's only accessible to internal personnel. Do you have time to meet and discuss?" I stared at my phone screen, my fingers trembling slightly. So, it really was him. "Julian Sterling, you're 100 times more vicious than I ever imagined." I replied, "Tomorrow, 10:00 a.m. Hospital Garden." "Thank you." Just as I set the phone down, another message came in. This time it was from Julian. "Elara, I know you don't want to see me right now, but I need to explain. Serafina was threatening suicide. I had no choice but to calm her down temporarily, but you're the only one in my heart. Please give me a chance to make things right. Also, my parents are really worried about you. They hope you'll come home." I let out a cold, humorless laugh. In my past life, it was these kinds of sweet, deceptive words that fooled me into believing he truly loved me. Now I saw it clearly. His so-called parents, Mr. and Mrs. Sterling, had never liked me from the start. They thought Avance wasn't good enough for their precious son. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened social media. As expected, hashtags like #GroomSwapsBride and #ErisMascarySanAbandoned were already trending. The internet was divided. One side sympathized with me and condemned Julian. The other accused me of being too magnanimous and deserving the consequences. I created a new, anonymous account and posted a short message. "Thank you for your concern. I'm currently recovering in the hospital and fortunately not in critical condition. I have no regrets about my decision at the wedding. Saving a life is worth it. I just never expected the price would be so high. Life is precious. I hope everyone cherishes it." The post, calm on the surface but laced with sharp, painful undertones, was shared tens of thousands of times within hours. Public opinion began to shift, with more and more people criticizing Julian and Serafina. Some even dug up Serafina's history of multiple past suicide attempts, questioning whether this latest one was nothing but another manipulative act. I watched the likes, shares, and comments pile up, a cold smirk tugging at my lips. Julian, this is just the first round. You always cared most about the Sterling family's public image, didn't you? Then I'll start by destroying it, piece by piece. The next morning, Liam returned with a flash drive. He also brought another piece of news, a grin plastered on his face. Alara, guess what? Serafina was caught last night at a nightclub in the meatpacking district, making out with some hot young model. It's all over the tabloids. Julian saw it this morning and trashed his entire office. I couldn't help but laugh. So, her true colors are already showing. I opened the flash drive and found a folder labeled Sterling Corp Projects. Looks like Miss Davenport isn't as devoted to Julian as she pretends to be, I murmured. Liam leaned over. What is this? These are internal documents from Sterling Corporation. Every major project from the last 3 years, I explained. Back then, I noticed some discrepancies in the numbers, so I made a backup just in case. Liam's eyes widened. Alara, that's incredible. These files alone could bring the Sterlings to their knees. Not so fast, I said, shaking my head. This is just surface level. We need hard proof. We need to connect the dots. I paused to think. Liam, find out if Sterling Corp is about to launch any major new projects, especially ones that require large-scale funding. Liam nodded and quickly left. At exactly 10:00 a.m., a nurse wheeled me to the hospital garden. Dr. Thorne was already there, his white coat glowing under the morning sun. Miss Vance, he greeted, helping push my wheelchair to a secluded bench. Are you feeling better? Much better, thank you. I gestured for the nurse to leave us alone. Dr. Thorne sat beside me and pulled a folder from his briefcase. Here's the detailed analysis report on that compound. He opened it. The substance is coded CD29. It's an experimental long-term contraceptive developed by Sterling Pharmaceuticals. One of the known side effects is infertility. Then, lowering his voice, he added, the most alarming part is that it also affects emotional stability. Users become easier to manipulate without even realizing it. I inhaled sharply. No wonder in my past life, I had obeyed Julian so blindly. No matter how cruelly he treated me, I never found the strength to resist. So, it wasn't weakness. It was the drug. Is there any way to prove Julian was the one who drugged me? I asked, looking at Dr. Thorne, my last hope. He adjusted his glasses. It's difficult, but he hesitated. I have a friend who works in the R&D department at Sterling Pharmaceuticals. He said this drug is only accessible to top-level executives, and Julian, as the heir apparent, does have that clearance. I clenched my fists so tightly that my nails dug into my palms. Julian Sterling, you didn't just lie to me about love. You tried to control my entire life with drugs. Can this information be used as evidence in court? I asked. Dr. Thorne shook his head. Not at this stage. But my friend is willing to testify if absolutely necessary. Then he gave a bitter smile. But he'd need a settlement. The Sterlings are too powerful. Testifying would mean the end of his career. Money's not an issue, I said without hesitation. Tell him if he's willing to testify, the Vance family will guarantee his and his family's safety and will give him enough money to live comfortably for the rest of his life. Dr. Thorne looked at me in surprise. Are you sure? That won't be a small amount. I gave a cold smile. Compared to making Julian pay for what he's done, money means nothing. He nodded thoughtfully. All right, I'll let him know. He glanced at his watch. I have to make my rounds. Take care and contact me anytime if you need anything. After he left, I sat alone in the garden. The sunlight poured over me, but I couldn't feel any warmth. My mind was flooded with memories from my past life. Julian forcing me to copy Buddhist scriptures until my fingers bled, making me kneel for hours in front of a temple in the dead of winter until I lost consciousness. Alara. A familiar, venomous voice snapped me out of my thoughts. I turned my head and saw Serafina Davenport standing a few feet away. She was wearing a designer dress with flawless makeup, looking nothing like someone who'd recently attempted suicide. What are you doing here? I asked coldly. Serafina approached, looking down at me with disdain. Just wanted to see if you were dead yet, she sneered, her lips curling into a vicious smile. Didn't expect you to be this tough. I forced myself to stay calm. Does Julian know you're here? Julian, she said smugly. He's busy dealing with the company's PR disaster. All thanks to that pathetic little post of yours. You've made a huge mess for Sterling Corp and the Sterling family. The board is breathing down his neck. So that's what this was about. I only told the truth, I replied weakly, playing the part of the victim. Miss Davenport, why are you doing this to me? I saved your life. Don't pretend to be some saint. Serafina suddenly lost control. Do you have any idea how much I've sacrificed for Julian? We grew up together. We were meant to be. And then 4 years ago, you suddenly appeared and stole him from me. I looked at her outburst calmly, and suddenly, everything became crystal clear. So all your suicide threats were just a performance? All to break us up? Serafina smirked. And what if they were? This time I won. Julian chose me. Really? I said lightly. Then what about the male model you were making out with at the club last night? Her face went white. You? How do you know about that? I lifted my phone and waved it slowly. The whole internet knows. Didn't Julian tell you? She fumbled for her phone, scrolling through it frantically. Her face turned ashen. That's impossible. I paid the reporter to bury those photos. I finished her sentence for her. Too bad someone else paid more. That someone, of course, was Marcus Rook. Serafina suddenly lunged at me. You bitch. It was you, wasn't it? She reached out to claw my face, but before her hand could touch me, a sharp voice rang out from behind. That's enough. Her wrist was caught midair, firmly held in place. Dr. Thorne had appeared in the garden without a sound. He stepped between us, his tall frame shielding me completely, and pushed Serafina back a few steps. This is a hospital. His voice was as cold as ice. Not a place for this kind of behavior. Do I need to call security? Serafina stumbled but managed to stay on her feet, her face pale with rage. Do you know who I am? I'm Julian Sterling's fiancé. Dr. Thorne adjusted his glasses, his eyes behind the lenses as sharp as blades. To me, he said calmly, you're nothing more than a violent intruder threatening one of my patients. Serafina's entire body trembled with rage. She pointed a trembling finger at my face. Elara Vance, just you wait. With that, she stormed off, the sound of her heels striking the ground as sharp as her temper. Dr. Thorne turned and crouched beside me to check my condition. Are you all right? I shook my head, my heartbeat still not having calmed down. Thank you. How did you know to show up just now? I was making my rounds, he replied. Saw something suspicious on the security monitor. Someone approaching you. He stood up and began pushing my wheelchair back toward the ward. So that was Serafina, he muttered. Even nastier in person than in the news. I let out a bitter laugh. No argument here. Back in my room, he adjusted my Ford drip. Your condition isn't stable. Emotional stress will only slow your recovery. The next time you receive visitors, make sure a family member is present. I didn't expect her to show up, I said, leaning back against my pillow. But I'm glad she did. That conversation confirmed one thing. What's that? He asked. Her suicide attempt was fake, I said, my eyes narrowing. She never meant to die. She just wanted to force Julian into making a choice. Dr. Thorne thought for a moment. Sounds like a match made in hell. I couldn't help but laugh, then immediately winced as a fresh wave of pain tore through my abdomen. I sucked in a sharp breath. Don't move, Dr. Thorne frowned. Your uterine injury needs at least 2 more weeks to start healing properly. He hesitated, then added, about that drug, my friend agreed to testify. My eyes lit up. Really? What does he want in return? $5 million, Dr. Thorne said bluntly. And a senior research position at the overseas branch of the Vance Corporation. He handed me a slip of paper. This is his Swiss bank account. Once the money's transferred, he'll resign immediately and take his family abroad. I looked at the account details and nodded. No problem. The position can be arranged whenever he's ready. Dr. Thorne gave a slight nod and turned to leave, but paused at the door. Miss Vance, are you sure you want to go through with this? The Sterling family isn't easy to deal with. I met his gaze directly. Dr. Thorne, do you know what it feels like to be drugged by the person you trusted most? Do you know what it's like to watch your parents die because of you? My voice trembled. I've already died once. There's nothing left to fear. He held my gaze for a long moment, then silently closed the door behind him, leaving me to my resolve. 3 days later, I was finally cleared to leave the hospital. My parents and Liam came to pick me up, driving me straight to the secure apartment on the Upper West Side. It was a spacious penthouse with wide, bulletproof windows overlooking the city and top-tier security. It was the perfect fortress for resting, recovering, and plotting my revenge. Ilara, here's your new phone and number, my mom said, handing me the device. We've kept your old number, but it's better not to use it. Julian keeps calling. I accepted the phone. Thanks, Mom. How are things at the company? My father handed me a glass of water. The board has already suspended all joint projects with Sterling Corp. Mr. Sterling has called 3 times to apologize. I refused to answer. Well done, I nodded. Dad, is the $5 million ready? He pulled a check from his briefcase. Right here. But, Ilara, are you absolutely sure about this? Once we start, there's no turning back. I took the check without hesitation. There was no turning back the moment he drugged me. Liam leaned in excitedly. Ilara, Marcus Rook, the private investigator, just made a huge discovery. He opened his laptop. Look, this is a record of Serafina's suicide history over the past 3 years. The screen displayed a detailed dossier. Serafina had attempted suicide almost every year, and every single time coincided with a milestone in my relationship with Julian, our anniversary, the day we moved in together, the day he proposed. The most recent one, our wedding day, was her 5th attempt. Textbook emotional manipulation, Liam said, raising an eyebrow. Every time she attempted suicide, he added, she ended up in the hospital, and Julian stayed right by her side. I let out a cold laugh. So that's why. No wonder Julian hated me so much after Serafina died in the last life. He was used to being manipulated by her, a puppet on her strings. There's more, Liam said as he switched tabs on his laptop. Rook hacked into Serafina's social media accounts and found something big. She and Julian have been in a physical relationship all along. Even while you two were together, they never stopped. The screen showed intimate photos of Serafina and Julian, their closeness documented over 4 years, a clandestine affair running parallel to my own public relationship with him. A wave of nausea twisted my stomach. It wasn't heartbreak, it was sheer, unadulterated disgust. Can these photos be used as legal evidence? I asked, my voice flat. Liam shook his head. Probably not in court. But in the court of public opinion? More than enough. Do we release them now? Not yet, I said, my mind working furiously. Let's give it a little more time. Let the pressure build. I turned to my father. What's Julian's biggest concern right now? My father answered immediately. Sterling Corp is preparing to go public. A scandal of this magnitude would shake investor confidence and tank their valuation. Then that's where we strike first, I smiled, a chillingly predatory expression on my face. Dad, can you arrange an interview for me with a journalist from the Wall Street Journal? I'll speak as the heir of the Vance Group. Share my thoughts on the current investment climate. My father immediately understood. No problem. I know their editor-in-chief. Right, Liam suddenly chimed in. I almost forgot about that big project you had me look into. There's been a breakthrough. He opened another document. Sterling Corp is bidding for the East Side New District development. They need at least $2 billion in funding. Their plan is to cover the gap with the IPO. My eyes lit up. So if we stop the IPO, the entire project collapses. Liam nodded enthusiastically. Exactly. They've already invested nearly $500 million of their own funds into the project. If the IPO fails, their cash flow could dry up completely. My father frowned. How did you even find out something this sensitive? Liam grinned proudly. Marcus Rook has a friend in Sterling Corp's finance department. Of course, we paid handsomely for the info. I patted his shoulder. Nice work. Then I turned to my parents. Mom, Dad, I need your help with something. What is it? My mom asked. I need you to send a divorce settlement proposal to the Sterlings in your name, I said calmly. Demand a public apology from Julian and a mental damages compensation of $100 million. My father's eyes widened. 100 million? They'll never agree to that. Exactly, I said coldly. That way, we can say negotiations broke down and go public with everything. My parents exchanged a long, heavy glance. My mother asked hesitantly, Alara, have you really thought this through? Once it's public, there's no going back. There was never a way back, I said softly. From the moment I was reborn, I had only one path left. Revenge. Reborn, they said in unison. That's when I realized I'd slipped. I quickly covered. I just meant, like I came back from the edge of death. A figure of speech. They still looked puzzled but chose not to press further. After they left, Liam stayed behind with me. He hesitated for a moment, then asked, Alara, what you said earlier. Was it true? About being reborn. I was silent for a moment, then slowly nodded. It sounds crazy, but yes. I really died once. In the last life, Serafina actually jumped, and Julian spent the rest of his life making me suffer to atone for her death. Liam's eyes widened like saucers. So, you know what's going to happen in the future? Only parts of it, I replied with a bitter smile. For example, in the original timeline, Mom and Dad died in a plane crash while rushing home. That's why I made sure to change their flight this time. Liam gasped. Oh my God. So, it's all real. Liam, I said seriously. You can't tell anyone about this, not even Mom and Dad. Let's keep it between us. Our secret. He nodded solemnly, his eyes sparkling with a strange excitement. Got it. This is so cool. It's like something out of a movie. Don't worry, sis. I'll help you get your revenge. I looked at his eager, innocent expression and couldn't help but smile. It felt good. Really good to have my family by my side, fighting for me. The following weeks were a whirlwind of calculated moves. My interview with the Wall Street Journal was published. Alara didn't mention the Sterlings by name, but Alara spoke eloquently about the importance of character and integrity in corporate leadership, and how a CEO's personal scandals could be a leading indicator of a company's hidden liabilities. The article was a masterpiece of insinuation, and the market reacted. Sterling Corp's pre-IPO valuation took a hit. Then, Alara's parents, as planned, delivered the divorce proposal with the outrageous $100 million demand. The Sterlings predictably refused. Alara's lawyers immediately went to the press, announcing that negotiations have broken down due to the Sterling family's lack of sincerity. Marcus Rook then strategically leaked the photos of Julian and Serafina's affair to the tabloids. The scandal exploded. Julian Sterling, once the golden boy of New York, became a pariah. Sterling Corp stock, which traded on the secondary market, plummeted. Their counterattack was swift and dirty. The Sterling's PR machine went into overdrive, planting stories that Alara was mentally unstable, a paranoid hysteric, and that Alara's miscarriage was Alara's own fault. Alara ignored the mudslinging. Alara was waiting for the final, killing blow. Dr. Thorne's friend, the scientist from Sterling Pharmaceuticals, safely in Switzerland, sent Alara the encrypted drive. It contained all the research data on CD29, including the buried clinical trial records showing its devastating cognitive side effects. Meanwhile, using the financial clues from Alara's old flash drive, Marcus Rook and his team worked tirelessly. They finally uncovered the entire scheme. Sterling Corp had created nearly $500 million in fake profits to pass the IPO audit. The money had been funneled by Julian's father, Henry Sterling, into a secret, high-risk offshore project. Now, all the pieces were on the board. The Sterling Foundation annual charity gala, Alara said, holding up the embossed invitation to her war counsel, Liam, Dr. Thorne, and Marcus Rook. 3 days from now, all of New York's elite, the media, and key investors will be there. It will be our stage. Liam looked worried. Are you sure you want to go in person, Alara? It's dangerous. Julian is like a cornered animal right now. Dr. Thorne pushed up his glasses. I'll be attending as a guest medical consultant. Marcus's team will be on standby outside. Alara applied a bold red lipstick, her reflection in the mirror showing a woman of cold, unshakable resolve. I have to go. I want to watch him fall from the heavens with my own eyes. The night of the gala, Alara wore a black Alexander McQueen gown, its dramatic silhouette a statement of war. When Alara arrived on Dr. Thorne's arm, every camera in the room turned to them. Julian was on stage, delivering a speech about corporate responsibility and family values. He looked gaunt, but he still wore the mask of the sterling heir. Serafina, in a pristine white dress, played the part of the supportive fiancé, smiling sweetly at his father, Henry Sterling. A perfect, corrupt family. As Julian's speech reached its crescendo, Alara began to walk slowly toward the stage. Well said, Mr. Sterling. Alara's voice, amplified by a microphone Alara had taken from a nearby table, echoed through the vast hall. But before you lecture us on family values, perhaps you could explain why you would systematically drug your own fiancée, attempting to render her infertile and mentally unstable? The hall fell into a dead, shocked silence. Julian's face went white. Alara, you're insane. Security, get this woman out of here. Not so fast, Alara smiled and pressed a button on a small remote in her hand. The massive screen behind the stage flickered to life, displaying the internal research data for CD29, highlighting the hidden, horrifying side effects. This, Alara announced to the stunned audience, is a masterpiece from Sterling Pharmaceuticals. A drug designed to destroy a woman's body and mind. And Mr. Julian Sterling was generous enough to make Alara take it for 6 months. The room erupted. Serafina shrieked, "You're lying." Am I? Alara pressed the remote again. The screen now showed the video Marcus Rook had captured of Serafina conspiring with the Sterling Corp CFO to falsify financial records. Henry Sterling's face turned the color of ash. He pointed a trembling finger at Alara, speechless with rage. As for Sterling Corporation's finances, Alara tossed a flash drive to the nearest journalist. This contains the complete evidence of their $500 million fraud. Alara is sure the SEC and the FBI will be very interested. Julian finally broke. He stormed off the stage, grabbing Alara's wrist. Alara, must you destroy me? He hissed, his voice a low growl. Alara wrenched her hand free. Destroy you? Julian, you destroyed yourself the moment you decided to poison me. In the ensuing chaos, police officers and SEC investigators swarmed into the ballroom. Henry Sterling collapsed, clutching his chest, a massive heart attack. Julian, Serafina, and several senior executives were escorted away in handcuffs. Alara stood in the center of the wreckage, the architect of their ruin. There was no triumph, only a vast, hollow emptiness. Dr. Thorne draped his jacket over Alara's shoulders. It's over. Alara nodded. No, not yet. The final judgment came faster than Alara expected. Faced with a mountain of irrefutable evidence, the Sterling family's legal team crumbled. The killing blow came from Serafina herself. To save her own skin, Serafina turned on the Sterlings, revealing every dirty secret she knew in exchange for a lighter sentence. Julian Sterling was found guilty of aggravated assault, illegal administration of an experimental drug, massive financial fraud, and a host of other charges. He was sentenced to 25 years in a maximum security prison. Serafina received 5 years for perjury and her role in the fraud. Sterling Corporation was hit with record-breaking fines and was forcibly delisted. The once mighty empire was in ruins. Henry Sterling, Alara learned, never recovered from his stroke and remained in a vegetative state. On the day of the verdict, Alara walked down the courthouse steps into the bright, unforgiving sunlight. Eris Thorne was waiting for Alara. It's all over, he said gently. Alara looked at Eris Thorne, the sun glinting off his glasses. Yes, Alara said. It's over. What's next? Eris Thorne asked. Elara looked up at the vast blue sky, a sky that now seemed full of possibilities instead of threats. To live, Elara said simply. To actually live. 1 year later. Elara used a portion of the settlement from the Sterling estate to establish the Dawn Foundation, a nonprofit dedicated to providing legal and psychological support to victims of coercive control and domestic abuse. Eris resigned from his hospital post to join Elara, heading up a new medical research center focused on ethical reproductive health. Liam, now a confident and capable leader, was thriving as the new CEO of Vance Corporation. Elara and Eris Thorne held a small wedding on a quiet beach in Bali. No press, no society guests. Just sunlight, soft sand, and the sincere blessings of their closest friends and family. As Eris slipped the ring on Elara's finger, he whispered, "Thank you for choosing me in your second life." Elara looked at Eris Thorne, her heart stopping for a beat. Eris Thorne smiled, a warmth in his eyes that melted the last of the ice around Elara's soul. "The first time you slipped up, I looked up the public death records from your past life. The date, the place. It all matched." Tears welled in Elara's eyes as Elara pulled Eris Thorne into a tight embrace. The world was vast and often cruel, but in it, Elara had found someone who believed her impossible story, someone who saw all her scars and loved Elara not despite them, but because of them. The setting sun stretched their shadows long across the sand. Given a second chance, Elara had finally learned what it meant to truly live, not for revenge, but for love, and for the quiet, profound joy of being loved in return. That, Elara realized, was the true meaning of her rebirth.